ADU, the building process. A homeowner's guide to building an ADU, the pitfalls, the process, and the benefits. By Bob Leon at Pro Builders Express. We've been building ADU since 2017, and actually we've been building them for 25 years. They were called guest quarters, casitas, in-laws quarters. Anyway, we're going to go through the whole process on this video. If you stay tuned, you'll see some of the interesting information I can give you on how to plan for your new ADU. There are many reasons for building an ADU. This will be important on how you build the ADU and your budget. Where do you want to build the ADU and how it will affect the building cost and your privacy? What is your budget for your ADU and why is it important? What is the benefits of an ADU? What are the pitfalls? What to look for in a contractor? Single story versus two story. Attached versus detached. What are you building the ADU for? Rental? Family? Additional costs associated with building an ADU. We'll go through all of these items during this video, so we'll answer most of your questions regarding that. Benefits of an ADU. There are many benefits to building an ADU. Some of my clients are retiring, want the additional income that an ADU rental can bring. California has a housing shortage. That's why the rental laws changed to allow the building of ADUs on single-family lots. 400 square foot garage conversions can rent for $2,000 or more in some areas, and a 1,200 square foot ADU can rent from $4,000 on up. Some of my clients are building an ADU because their kids have moved away and they don't need a large house and will move into the ADU so they can rent their main house. Because the cost of housing is so expensive, many parents are building ADUs for their kids. With two-bedroom apartments costing $3,000 on up, much less costly for the kids to pay an additional loan to build the ADU. Unless you start a side job, where else can you get an additional income of $2,000 to $4,000 per month? It will at least pay for the loan to build and possibly give you some cash flow. Also, the new ADU will increase the value of your property by 130% to 200% of what it costs to build. California has a grant program that will give $40,000 to the homeowner for pre-construction costs. This program runs out very quickly, so be aware when funds are available, you need to apply. First question, what is the ADU going to be used for? If you're planning to rent the ADU out, it'll make a difference in what you may want to spend versus if you plan on moving into it and rent out the main house. The latter has been common with homeowners ready to retire or don't need a large house as the kids are gone and they want a smaller house to retire in and could use the rental income from the main house. If you're going to rent the ADU, you may consider options that are less expensive but still will be less maintenance. Some of the options, such as separate meters and solar panels, will have an upfront cost but will save you money in the long run. You may want more privacy if you're going to live in it. Upgrading material for your lifestyle may be important versus a rental. Accessibility may be important. How close to parking and access from street. Size of the ADU will be important. The cost per square foot will normally go down the larger the ADU. 2 stories, the cost per square foot will go up at least 1/3 to 1/2. There are many ADU options. If you're going to rent the ADU out, you may want to opt for some different options versus if you're going to occupy the ADU. For instance, acrylic shower versus tile. It's 5 times less expensive for the acrylic shower versus the tile. But most people want tile in their home because it looks much nicer. Separate meters for electrical, gas, and water allows you to charge the tenants for utilities. Detached ADU for privacy. If you're going to rent it out, you want your privacy. So you want to have something that is detached. Attached would be okay if you're going to rent to family or if you don't mind having someone that's living in a ADU attached to your house. There's very many options. I'm not going to go through each line item for you. You could read through them, and we'll go through some of this stuff a little bit later. Privacy factor. Realize if you're having another family live on your property, whether it be a tenant or family member, both of you will need privacy. Consider the location of the ADU for privacy and access. Unless you have rear parking or an alley, most access will be through the side of the main house. You want a pathway to the ADU to be defined, either with fencing or a gate and a sidewalk. There are setback requirements for the detached ADU. The ADU has to be set back 10 foot from main house and 4 feet from side and rear property lines. Confirm with your local building departments, as there are some exceptions. Privacy is important to anyone who is living in the house or ADU, so try to configure the location with this in mind. Detached ADUs require minimum 10-foot setback from main house. Consider ADU door location closest to pathway from parking area. Privacy fencing to separate the ADU from the main house. Consider separate yard areas for main house and ADU. Consider quiet wall drywall to reduce the sound from the wall that's closest to the main house. Parking area should be defined for ADU and the main house. Pathway to ADU should be on side closest to parking and less intrusive to main house. This rental tip include an automatic 3% annual increase in rents because of rent control. Single story versus two-story. In my business, I've had homeowners ask many times about considering building a two-story ADU. Unfortunately, additions over existing houses versus a single-story ADU is much more costly. This is because of the reinforcement of the first story to hold another house on top will increase the building cost from $300 to $450 per square foot. I don't recommend a two-story unless you don't have room to build a single story. Average pricing of ADUs are from $350 to as much as $550 per square foot, so a two-story will increase that cost even more. Now, a stackable two-story will not be as expensive because the reinforcement is being accomplished during the building of the first story. We completed a 1,200 square foot ADU, 600 square foot on first floor, and 600 on second floor, and the cost was closer to $350 per square foot because the reinforcement did not require additional work or demolition or underpinning of existing foundation. The only caveat about building a two-story ADU is whether your city will allow it. Many cities do not allow two-story ADUs unless it is built over the garage. You'll need to check with your local planning department. If you're an unincorporated LA County, they do allow it. Also realize if your existing house is not already a two-story, you'll need to add a stairway, and this will eat up about 100 square feet of living area. Budget and pricing. Well, one of the most important items to consider in building an ADU is the budget and pricing. This won't vary by city, as the cost to build the same project in Beverly Hills or Buena Park will be the same. Your permit costs may be higher because of the city, but the only difference in building cost will be the design and amenities. Beverly Hills may be more expensive only because the design and amenities are more elaborate. So consider this when you're designing an ADU, as you may end up paying Beverly Hills pricing for a more elaborate design. I ask my customers for a budget before I quote their ADU, as this will have an effect on the design of the ADU. If they have a budget of $250,000, I won't design an ADU for $350,000. I will never ask my customer to get architectural plans first before I bid the project. I can't tell you how many times I've bid customers plans that they had completed and paid good money only to find out the estimates to build their project was way over their budget. It's much better to design to your budget than the other way around. As I previously stated, as an experienced general contractor, I'm familiar with the building cost. An architect is familiar with the design and drawings of plans, not building costs. So need I say, the best one to know the cost is the experienced general contractor. Budget and pricing continued. The cost of material is the same all over. Even Home Depot does not give discounts to general contractors. They charge wholesale to everyone. So if you get a better price from one contractor, you're paying for cheaper labor. And this is the one thing you don't want to do on a project of this scale. Be aware of the low cost estimate. Either the contractor is not experienced in building ADUs and will charge you during the job for items he missed as an extra work order, or he'll walk away from the uncompleted job. Most of my clients shop at Home Depot or Lowe's for their plumbing fixtures. You also have online portals such as Ferguson, Build.com, and even Amazon. But be careful of the import products from China or other countries, as their specs may not meet the low flow requirements in California, and the products themselves may not hold up as well. I had this happen to a job where the customer ordered a shower valve that started coming apart within a week after installation. Be aware, some products you order may be more expensive to install, and may be subject to a work order by the contractor. California has one of the most stringent energy codes in the U.S., and some plumbing fixtures do not meet the low flow requirements. So check with your contractor to confirm it'll pass inspection. Budget and pricing continued. The market pricing for ADUs is $300 to $500 a square foot for most projects and will be affected by the square footage of the project. The cost per square foot will be reduced by the larger the project. There is actually economy in scale. A licensed contractor should have workers' compensation insurance and liability insurance to protect you from an injury lawsuit on your property during the construction period. And it should be in the contractor's name, not borrowed from another contractor. If you decide to save money and do owner-builder, be aware that you'll have 10 inspections during the construction period. And it can be very trying, even for experienced contractors. Also be aware that you should include everything in your original estimate, as extra work orders can take you out of your budget. Another item that may affect your budget is a cost for separate meters. Although this is not required when building an ADU, most of the cost of adding meters would not be paid to the contractor, but to the utility companies. Southern California Gas will usually give you a meter, but will charge you for the installation, and this cost can be from $3,000 to $5,000. The contractor may charge additional if they have to extend your gas line to the new meter location. This could be less than $2,000 depending on the length of gas line needed. Adding a water meter is usually more expensive depending on the water company. I had a client get an estimate of $12,000 to add a water meter to his ADU. He didn't do it. A separate electrical panel is the least costly, and we always include that in our bids. It can range from $2,500 for a 100 amp panel to $3,800 for a 200 amp panel, and the contractor can do this. Southern California Edison does not charge for connecting the panel and new meter. An experienced contractor should be able to bid an ADU without plans, and should be able to design a project within your budget if your budget is realistic. Always go with an experienced contractor, as this will save you headaches in the long run. Architectural plans. The first part of your construction journey starts with the architectural plans. I'd not recommend getting plans completed until you have a bid from a general contractor. As I've previously discussed, that you would have a difficult time keeping within your budget without a written estimate and a design from a general contractor. I had a client who built a house recently, and the customer had told the architect that he had a budget of $250,000 to add 1,000 square feet and remodel 1,200 square feet to his existing house. I bid the plans and it was over $450,000. He had bids all the way up to $600,000 for the same project. The architect said he wanted to bid the project once the plans were completed. The architect declined to bid the project as he realized it was way over their budget given to the customer. We ended up with the job. Keep in mind, the only person you should get an estimate of cost is from an experienced, licensed general contractor, as it is their job to build construction projects. The architect and designer are not experienced in building, but designing and drawing plans. Building plans should cost $5,000 to $12,000, depending on whether it's a single story or two-story and the size of the ADU. A two-story requires engineering, and this cost and reinforcement will increase your price per square foot. We use designers for most plans, as licensed architects are not required for residential construction projects. They charge more, and they are not as familiar with residential construction as they design more commercial projects. If engineering is included, a licensed structural engineer will be required, as they will need to furnish the structural calculations with the plan submittal. The architect will furnish the structural engineer with the plans, but they may charge separately for that. The contractor should review the plans for accuracy with you before submittal to the building department to confirm window and door locations and size and location of the ADU. Plan check submittal. The plan check process seems to be the longest portion of the project. Once the plans are completed and approved by the homeowner, the plans are submitted to the city for plan check approval. The first department to review the plans will be the planning department, as they will review the exterior design of the ADU to verify it matches the design of your existing house and the ADU meets size and setback requirements, accessibility and parking requirements. This process can take 2 to 4 weeks. Next will be the building department, which will confirm the design and structural plans meet all building codes. The electrical plan, the plumbing plan, windows, mechanical plan, and Title 24 of the Energy Code, interior and exterior finishes, roofing finishes, kitchen and bath requirements. This process is elongated. It's not the plan check that will take months. It'll only take a day or two for approval, but months to get to the plan checker to review your project, as they have many projects and not enough plan checkers to review them. This part of the project can take 12 to 16 weeks to get to approval. The last part of the plan approval that needs to get signed off is the various departments. This process should only take a week. It's more of a formality rather than a plan check. Public Works, waste management, grading. The contractor cannot expedite the plan check process, so patience is a virtue during this time. Permit processing. Once the plan check has been approved by the building department, the permit processing takes about 3 to 7 days to process plans and permits by the permit technician. The contractor or homeowner will need to pay for the permits and fill out the proper paperwork required by the city. Permits costs vary from city to city and generally can cost from $4,000 to $12,000 for an ADU. Developer fees are not allowed to be charged by the city for a new ADU less than 750 square feet. School fees are usually charged for any ADU or addition over 500 square feet. These fees range from $3 to $5 per square foot and are paid directly by the homeowner to the school district where the property is located. A waste management recycling deposit is required by some cities to ensure that the required recycling of 65% of all construction debris is met, depending on the size of the project, and the city can charge from a few $100s to a few $1,000s. This is a refundable deposit and will be given back after the receipts are turned in. The waste hauler is required to use recycling dumpsters and turn in receipts showing the amount of debris recycled and the recycler dump site information. So if you have to pay the recycling deposit, don't pay the waste hauler or contractor until they turn in recycling receipts. This is then submitted to the city for the homeowner or contractor to get his deposit back from the city. So make sure your waste debris is recycled at least 65%. Once all paperwork has been turned in and all fees have been paid, the city will furnish a stamped set of approved plans to keep at job site for inspections, along with an inspection card for the inspector to sign off on. Recently, we have been receiving the inspection cards and approved plans online. This makes the process so much smoother. There are at least 10 inspections during the project, and if you fail any inspections, you may end up with 15 inspections or more. A knowledgeable GC will usually pass his inspections the first time. Scheduling of your project. Experienced general contractors should be able to give you a proposed schedule for completing your project. This schedule is approximate and may change depending on a few variables such as weather, inspection delays, material delays, and changes in work by homeowner. Most ADUs will take 5 to 8 months to complete with all inspections. Best way to minimize delays and cost is to minimize changes during the project. My experience in delays has been related to delays in getting material, as some special order material can take weeks to get delivered, and since certain materials like doors and windows need to be installed prior to framing inspection, this could delay your project. Making all changes to the plans before submittal will ensure minimum delays. Plan revision delays, permit processing delays, and it will ensure the contractor has no excuse for delaying your project. Choosing material and ordering it in plenty of time will help keep the project on schedule, as long as you have somewhere to store it rather than in the ADU where it can get damaged. Realize there are at least 10 inspections by the building department during your project, and most cities will inspect within 24 to 48 hours when scheduled. Recently, with so many ADU projects along with the room addition projects, the cities are getting overwhelmed with inspections and can take as long as 1 to 2 weeks for an inspection. So the experienced contractor knows to try to anticipate when he will need the inspection and call ahead of time. Demolition. This is the time when your construction timeline starts. Depending on whether you're building a detached ADU with minimal or no demolition or an attached ADU or second-story ADU over garage, the demolition time frame will vary. Usually the first demolition can be completed in 3 to 5 days with the removal of construction debris. An attached ADU requires demolition of stucco from the existing house for the width of the ADU and possibly concrete removal if there is a patio. Also, the need to remove the existing roof eaves and fascia for the roof tie-in may be necessary. A second-story ADU would require removal of existing roof and rafters, possibly drywall and concrete if there is a new footing. A garage conversion would require garage door removal, stucco removal for windows, concrete removal for new sewer lines, so the schedule can vary according to the type and location of ADU. To minimize the impact of the demolition on the homeowner on an attached ADU, and there is some structural framing to be done in the existing house, we try to hold that off until later in the schedule before drywall. The knowledgeable contractor will try to minimize the impact of having to turn off utilities until needed. Most utilities can be connected during the project, and should not affect the homeowner more than a few hours of downtime when a connection is to be made. A detached ADU may not require any demolition unless you have a patio or trees to remove. Foundation. The foundation is the actual start of the building process. Depending on whether you're building a slab-on-grade foundation or a raised foundation will depend on when you will need to get ground plumbing installed and approved. A slab-on-grade foundation will require all necessary sewer lines to be installed, tested, and approved by the building department before you can pour. A raised foundation will need to be poured first before ground plumbing is installed. Most detached ADUs are built with slab-on-grade foundations, as they are less costly than raised foundation. The only reason you'd want a raised foundation will be if the existing house is a raised foundation and you are building an attached ADUs to the existing house. With all the new requirements for structural reinforcement because of California earthquake, the requirements for foundations are heavily reinforced. There is also a vapor barrier to prevent ground moisture from wicking up through the cement to your new floor. Minor cracks may still arise during the curing period. This is normal for any concrete but should not affect the integrity of the foundation. Be aware that forms of a foundation will make the ADU seem very small. This is an optical illusion that is created by comparing the foundation forms to the trees, telephone posts, any large structures. Everything outside will make your ADU foundation forms look smaller until you frame it and get a ceiling on the ADU. Then the framing will put everything into perspective. Ground plumbing. The ground plumbing will need to be installed before a slab foundation will be approved to pour. The ground plumbing will consist of 3-inch ABS sewer line glued and sloped to at least a quarter slope per foot to assure proper drainage to the main sewer line. An inspection to verify the sewer line does not leak requires a 10-foot stack, and it will need to be filled with water to 10 feet and capped to ensure that the sewer line doesn't leak. Once approved, the slab foundation will be ready to inspect and pour concrete. The sewer can be tied in at the end of the job to make it easier to test. Plumbing codes require plenty of sewer line cleanouts. The 3-inch main sewer line is usually tied into the front yard, as the majority of homes have their main house sewer near the street. The point of tie-in for the main sewer will be dependent on the length of the run. If you have a run of 100 feet, you'll need to tie in to the main sewer line at a depth of 25 inches. Most sewer lines near the street drop down 5 to 6 feet before the street tie-in, so you can tie in anywhere in your front yard at a depth of 25 inches or more to obtain the proper slope. Pouring of foundation. After inspection of the ground plumbing, the next inspection will be the foundation and footings. This requires a contractor to follow the structural details in the approved plan. Once the inspection by the building inspector has been approved, the next process will be pouring of 2,500 psi concrete, usually with a pre-gravel mix, so the concrete can be poured through a concrete pump and a hose. Pouring directly from a truck is usually not possible because of the locations of the construction. The concrete will take a few hours to set up, and the concrete finishers will start screeding and finishing the concrete to a semi-smooth finish. There will be some dips in the concrete as the concrete will shrink, and there is no way to assure the concrete is completely flat. Most of the dips are very slight and will be filled in by the flooring installer prior to flooring installation. Minor cracks can be expected, as there is no assurance that concrete will not crack due to the curing process. Some contractors will suggest waiting a few days for the concrete to cure. I generally don't, as I've never had a crack in concrete because we started too soon. Concrete will take years to fully cure, so a couple days will not help. Framing. Framing is one process where you can visualize the ADU coming together. The walls are usually built on the slab laying down and stood up after they are built. The framing process can take a couple weeks to as many as 8 weeks, depending on the size and complexity of the framing. Normally, the single-story ADU will be framed with 2x4 Doug fir studs, and sometimes two-story ADUs will be built with 2x6 Doug fir studs. Roof framing can be built by cut and stack method or pre-built engineered truss roofs. We prefer cut and stack method as roof trusses can take weeks and months to order, whereas you can cut and stack a roof in a couple of days. Matching the exterior details of a roof eave and fascia to the existing house is preferred rather than change the design. Many homeowners worry about the framing getting wet during a rainstorm. The Doug fir is normally moist when shipped from the lumberyard and is kept outside at the lumberyard. Unlike Home Depot, who stores their material inside, the rain will not harm the lumber as it's originally shipped to the mills outside in wet weather. Lumber that is too dry will actually twist. Soon after the framing roof sheeting inspection has been approved by the building inspector, a roof should be installed on the new ADU. The roof will cover the ADU and help shield the workers who will be working on electrical, plumbing, and mechanical installations. Matching the new roof to the existing house is usually required by the building department. Since roofs last 30 years or more, matching exact colors of older roofs are very difficult to do. Colors that will match as close as possible is the only choice on older roofs. Building departments require cool roofs now because of the energy code. You can even change the color of the roof on the ADU from the existing house if you get the building department approval by letting them know that you will be changing your older house roof out in 5 years or less to match. Windows and doors. After the framing is completed, windows and doors are installed. The state of California has a very strict energy code called Title 24, and this will define what insulation values are required to comply in windows and doors. All windows manufacturers know what the energy requirements are and make their windows and doors to meet these requirements. The stickers on the windows need to stay on the windows until approved by the building inspectors, as this contains the energy requirements required by the energy code. You can choose windows and doors for your ADU from most big box vendors, but the only problem is there are some windows that must be tempered, and these usually need to be special ordered. Tempered windows are usually within a distance from a door opening or in bathroom areas. Most entry doors meet these requirements. Most exterior entry doors are 36 inches and rear entry doors are 32 inches, but these are not defined by code. Interior doors are exempt from energy requirements. Window size are also defined in bedrooms to meet egress in case of a fire. If you go shopping for windows and doors, take your building plans with you to the vendors. They can help you choose the right size window and doors that meet the energy requirements of your plan. Stucco. The next process after roof sheeting inspection, the building department will approve the building to be wrapped with building paper and stucco lath. The process occurs after framing inspection and the windows and doors are installed. The 60-minute paper that is installed under the stucco lath is a waterproofing part of the stucco. The stucco is just a barrier to protect the paper from sunlight damage. Once the paper is installed, your ADU should be watertight. The stucco lath will need to be inspected by the building department before the stucco can be applied. Stucco is a process that includes scratch coat, brown coat, and the final color coat. Color coat will retain its color for over 50 years, if not painted. Once you paint stucco, you'll need to paint every 10 to 15 years. Paint will only last that long before it'll start peeling and will need to be repainted. Stucco comes in a few different finishes. The sand finish, which is the most popular texture, a lace finish is second, and a Santa Barbara finish, which is a very smooth finish and is used on high-end homes primarily because of the cost. Unfortunately, minor cracks in stucco are common, as stucco is a concrete and they have not invented a concrete that won't crack. The amount of cracking will depend on the curing time of the stucco. If the weather is very hot outside, the stucco may crack due to the drying out of the concrete at a faster pace. Hairline cracks are usually not a problem. Rough electrical. The fun starts here. The rough electrical wiring and the outlets, switch, and light receptacles are ready to be installed. For most living areas, we'll run a separate circuit for each bedroom or maybe one circuit for 2 bedrooms. The electrical code doesn't have a requirement for how many circuits you need to run for living areas. The code does require all kitchen appliances need to be installed on separate circuits as well as bathrooms. This makes sense since most kitchen appliances pull a lot of amps. In the old days, the home builders installed 2 or 3 circuits for the whole house. That's why your microwave and coffee pot sometimes trigger the breakers, because they are on the same circuit. We always install a new service panel with a new ADU. It only makes sense since your new ADU may have more circuits than your existing house. Service panels are not expensive and can be installed by the contractor. Besides having more circuits, the new electrical code requires AFCI breakers on your standard outlets, which will shut down quicker if there is an arc or short in a line that may cause a fire. AFCI breakers are 10 times more expensive than conventional breakers, but are necessary to prevent fires in the homes. Ground fault or GFI 20 amp outlets are required at bathroom outlets and kitchen outlets. In the future, the state of California is considering going all electric with the ADUs. Rough plumbing. Ground plumbing is part of the rough plumbing, but was completed and inspected before foundation for the 3-inch sewer lines. The rest of the rough plumbing includes the PEX cold and hot water piping, the vent stacks for the fixtures, and the drain pipes also. The whole process can take a couple days to a week, depending on how many fixtures you have, including bathrooms, laundry rooms, and kitchen. If you're having an acrylic shower or tub installed, it will need to be installed during the rough plumbing stage along with the shower or tub valve. If you're going with a tile shower, only the shower valve needs to be installed along with a shower pan, either vinyl, hot mop, or acrylic. It's important to have the kitchen cabinet plans and the bathroom vanity plans for the contractor so he'll know where to place the sewer lines and supply lines for the faucets. Not having these items may cause the contractor to use the approved plans and can lead to an extra work order if your cabinet design does not match the approved plans, and he will need to move the rough plumbing. The 3-inch sewer tie-in is not required to be connected to main sewer line until the end of project, but can be connected early if you get it inspected. Normally, a 3-inch sewer tie-in will be connected near main house sewer to the street, possibly a few feet from the street in the front yard. Rough mechanical. The rough mechanical is also referred to as a heating and air conditioning installation. One of the most efficient heating and air conditioning units are the newer mini-split units. These units, unlike the central heating, and all units operate with separate air handler units in each room. They're more efficient, do not cost as much as central air units. The units have wall-mounted air handlers for each room or upgraded ceiling cassette units. The reason they are more efficient, you don't have to heat or cool every room in the ADU, only the one you are in at the time. I've even replaced the central air in my house with a 4-zone mini-split system. The cost is 1/3 to 1/2 of the cost of central air, and much more efficient. If you do decide to go with central air, the furnace will need to be installed during this stage along with a line set that will be connected to the exterior compressor. The exterior compressor for both unit types will not be installed until after your stucco or siding is completed on the outside of your ADU. Be sure to size your units for the size of the ADU. Insulation. Thanks to Title 24, your new ADU will be better insulated than your existing house. A good reason to move into it. Title 24 is an energy code requirement that California requires for all new construction. This part of the construction will have your ceiling insulated with R35 insulation, and sometimes they may require R19 in the rafters and radiant barrier on your roof sheeting. Radiant barrier looks like foil attached to the bottom of the roof sheeting to reflect the heat from your roof. New cool roofs are now required that help reduce the heat also. The exterior walls are insulated with the R15 insulation. Windows are also insulated and rated by the state for the Title 24 requirements. It's really up to the Title 24 report that is completed by the energy engineer on your project. Most insulation is installed within a day or two and will need to be inspected. The state is getting very strict on the energy code and sometimes requires your rafters to be insulated as well as your attic space. It will be up to the Title 24 report created for your project. I believe that there is more energy requirements than what is needed, as a homeowner will end up paying for this in the long run. I just installed a 70 CFM fan in the hallway of a 2-bedroom addition because the Title 24 report called for it. Drywall. Once we get to this stage, you will want to have any electrical changes or speaker or cable wiring in place. The interior walls will no longer be accessible. Most ADUs require 1/2-inch drywall on all walls or ceilings and green board in any wet areas of walls. The green board is not required but preferred. There are 3 types of drywall finishes: orange peel, knockdown, and smooth finish. The orange peel seems to be the texture most used, with knockdown second and smooth finish third. The orange peel is sprayed on and will accept wallpaper or paint easily. Knockdown is sprayed also, but knocked down with a trowel afterwards. This texture is more acceptable to paint, less to wallpaper. The smooth finish texture is usually used on higher end homes. Mainly it's 1/3 to 1/2 more in cost, requires more coats, and no spray texture. In the old days, they used acoustical texture for ceilings, and they ended up being a dust trap, collecting dirt, and spider webs. I have only completed an acoustical ceiling twice in 25 years for a room addition, as a homeowner wanted to match the existing house. Finish carpentry. One of the last items to be completed before the interior paint is a finish carpentry. It can include base molding, casing moldings, interior and exterior doors, and sometimes cabinets and vanities. I usually prefer to install cabinets after paint, so the walls behind the cabinets are painted, and it's easier on the painter as well. You have many choices to choose for base molding, from a 2-inch base to as much as an 8-inch base molding. I like to match the base to the casing if they have a matching base. If not, any base you like would do. Interior doors are usually pre-hung with door jambs and hinges. They're much easier and less costly than having to hang a book door. There are many types of pre-hung doors. Hollow core doors are common and less costly. If you want to upgrade door, they do have a solid core pre-hung door, but you'll be paying a premium for them. There's also casing and crown molding available. Crown is an extra and can be more costly to install. Painting. Your ADU will start to look like an ADU when the painting is started. I usually prefer a good quality paint. A good latex enamel with a modest sheen, eggshell, or flat is preferred for most living areas, walls, and ceilings. I've been in homes that used a semi-gloss enamel on walls, and with the lights on, there are shiny glares bouncing off the walls and ceiling. The use of high sheen paints were used more in homes built 30 years ago, as it was easier to clean walls with a semi-gloss finish. But with the newer paints, even the flats are just as easy to clean as a semi-gloss, and you don't see a glare with the lights on the walls and ceilings. Also, with high sheen walls, defects in the drywall are very prominent, whereas with flat paints, defects in the wall are not as noticeable. Floor coverings. One of the final items that is installed is the floor coverings. You don't want contractors walking all over your new floor coverings, so the best time to install a floor covering is last. The most popular floor coverings that we have been installing is luxury vinyl laminate. This floor is very durable. It's a reasonable cost with many colors and styles to choose from. Keep in mind, with any hard surface flooring, the base molding needs to be installed after the flooring is installed. Luxury vinyl laminate is much less costly than real hardwood and much more durable. The second popular floor covering would be carpeting. The base molding can be installed before the carpeting. Another floor covering is ceramic tile. It's more costly and is subject to cracking, especially if not installed properly. Drainage. By design, all lots slope from the backyard to the street at least a quarter inch per foot or more. This is so water from heavy rains will drain towards the street sewer system. Depending on the lot, how the slope will affect your ADU. The building code requires all perimeter soil to drain away from the ADU or addition. Sometimes this is difficult to do if the ADU blocks the natural slope towards the front. In that case, either a drainage system or simply a swale can be formed in the area of blockage of the slope to move the water around the ADU towards the front. If your grade in the rear is very high and you have an attached ADU and you're trying to match the floor height of the existing house, you may need to build a stem wall similar to the one in a garage so the water cannot penetrate the ADU. Some ideas and tips. If you do go with a ceramic tile shower, keep in mind you may want to have the contractor install a shampoo box. It's just a box recessed in the tile wall for your shampoo bottles. Another idea is to have an outlet placed under the vanity so you can place your electric toothbrush, charger, curling iron, blow dryer out of the sight under the cabinet. Some new vanity cabinets come with a connection for an outlet. I also make a suggestion to my clients: if they want an in-ground vault, they can buy one to be recessed in the foundation before it is poured, and it can be covered by your floor coverings temporarily till you need to open it. Atlas sells an in-ground vault for $700 to $800 for this purpose. Another suggestion is to install an attic ladder in a walk-in closet or hallway with plywood in the attic area for storage. These can be purchased at Home Depot or Lowe's for a few $100s. Adding a light switch at bottom of stairs with a light in the attic makes it very useful. If you plan on adding an outdoor living area in the future, you may want a gas line and water lines for your outdoor kitchen. If you have any questions, feel free to email bobprobuilds@gmail.com or call 562-755-7790. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you regarding ADUs. Thank you.